Very often when people praise us, we feel lightened, happy. But when people condemn us and talk bad about us, we feel down. I think this is something to do with a sense of self, isn't it? So when this sort of thing happens, what should we tell our mind? We realize it is a sense of self, but how should we actually slay this sort of thinking?
That's the best question that anyone has ever asked me. Thank you for asking this question. That was the stupidest question I've ever heard. Which one do you attach to? Yes. Yes, of course. You know, when we hear that someone says, yes, that's the best question, your most intelligent question I've ever, you know, we feel, oh, you know, yes. And someone says, you know, you're an idiot, you know, why did you ask such a stupid question? And yes, you feel, you know. And that's one of the things that, you know, the teacher is actually trying to point us towards, is not delighting in the words of others. Because what we do is we put our sense of self-worth in the praise or blame of others. And, you know, that's one of the first things that Ajahn Chah taught me. You know the story of when I went to Ajahn Chah's monastery, and the first range retreat I was staying there, newly ordained, just only ordained as a monk for 3 months. By that time I'd been a novice before that for 1.5 years. And one day I was going on alms round, and on the way back there was another Western monk there, and he started criticising the other monks in the monastery. And they weren't doing this right and weren't doing that to his happiness and things. And but the things he was criticising them for was something he refused to do himself. Yes? He refused to do that job, but then he was criticising all the other monks who were doing it. And I remember getting kind of disappointed with him and thinking in my mind, I didn't say it to him, I said, you know, why don't you just help instead of finding fault? And so I just walked off and kind of left him to walk back to the monastery by himself, and I walked off quickly ahead. But my mind was, you know, physically I was separated from him, but my mind was thinking, he shouldn't have said that. Why is he criticising other monks? So my mind was criticising him for criticising other monks, yes? I got back to the monastery, and normally Ajahn Chah was already back, and I looked over to his hut, and he hasn't got back for his alms round, he wasn't there. And I started thinking about this monk again, and then I heard Ajahn Chah say in English, "Good morning." And I looked up, and he was standing literally 1 metre away with this big smile on his face, and he was radiant, happy. So I put my hands in Anjali, and it's the first time I'd heard him say "good morning" in English. He could say 2 phrases. He'd been to England and America twice, and one was "good morning" and the other was "do you want a cup of tea?" Because when he was in England, everyone would ask him, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And he said it's like the monks giving the blessing chant, which "Yatha varivaha upakapati." So he said he could remember that very easily. So he said "good morning," and so I put my hands in Anjali and I said "good morning," and then actually, I completely forgot this thing that had happened with this monk, sort of saying something I didn't want to hear. And I had the meal, and then in the evening, just around dusk, I was thinking, well, Ajahn Chah said "good morning." I'd learned how to do reflexology a bit when I was a layman, just playing around with it. And sometimes I'd go and offer him a foot massage and massage his shoulders and neck. And so that evening, because it said "good morning," I thought, well, I'll go over and offer him a foot massage. And so I did. And there was a group of monks. Lumpo Liam was sitting there, and about 6 monks. And there was 70 monks altogether in the monastery. So it's not like you always had a lot of personal one-on-one interaction with Ajahn Chah. He's very busy. and I'd only, recently gone to stay with him. And they rang the bell, dong, 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 and he said to all the monks, all of you go up to the hall and do evening chanting, and he said, Tanyana, you stay here. And so the monks went up to the hall and they started chanting. And it was one of those beautiful evenings, the moon was coming up, it was not too hot, not too cold. And he used to like to sit in the dark, actually. He didn't used to light candles or anything like that. So he was sitting in the dark on a bamboo seat, and I was holding his foot in my lap and giving him a massage and thinking to myself, I'm massaging the foot of a fully enlightened human being. This is an arahant, and here I am making all this merit. And then the monks started chanting, paying respects to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And when you've got 70 monks, there's baritone voices, all in unison, and I was kind of coming over the distance, and it just sounded like, the devas chanting, heavenly beings. And my mind started to go into sort of, kind of float away because of just this joy and happiness. Here I am massaging an arahant, listening to the chanting of all these bhikkhus, praising the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and I was just sitting there with my eyes shut, massaging in this joy, and then suddenly he kicked me in the chest. And he pushed me back, and I sort of hit my head on the ground, and then he just pointed at me and he said, see, one person says something that makes you upset, and then another person just says good morning, and you're happy all day. Yes? Don't get lost in the words of another. Don't allow your happiness or unhappiness to be dependent on the words of another. And he gave this whole lecture to me. And I was very, very moved because, I put sort of tears of joy because of just realizing that, yeah, he was absolutely right. He knew my mind at that time better than I knew myself. And he had chosen that, he was going to teach me that day, which was incredibly compassionate. Okay? And, he taught me in a way that I'll never forget. And he also knew my temperament. If he'd just say, tap me on the head and said, oh, Ajahn Nyanadhammo, don't worry what they said, I've forgot it by now. Yes? And he said lots of other things to me which I've forgotten. But that day I haven't forgotten. Yes? So he knew how to make me remember that. And that's really true, isn't it? And it's not relevant just for me, it's something that's relevant for all of you, that we are really affected emotionally by the words of another. And sometimes we can think for days, weeks, even years, lifetimes even. Why did they say that? They shouldn't have said that. How dare they say that? That's not right that they say that. That's not right. And we get either delighted or suffering because of the words of another. And we don't have any freedom from those words. Now, where do we find freedom from those words? It's by not allowing our mind to attach to the words of another. Where we need to do is have a refuge unto ourselves of knowing, okay, say if they do criticise us, the Buddha says in the suttas, if someone criticises us, we should check, is that criticism justified and true? And if it's justified and true, then we should accept it, not out of saying, no, they shouldn't ever criticise me. That's actually pointing out a treasure. And then we can make an adjustment. But if it's not correct and not true, then we should abandon that. And so there's that famous case of the Brahmin who he didn't like the Buddha because the Buddha, taught people to lead their lay life and practice meditation, seek liberation. And he didn't like Buddhism, he liked the Brahmin tradition, the teaching of the Vedas. And one day he met the Buddha and he started abusing him. In the Pali, he starts calling him a camel, a pig, a dog. Yes, right. Really abusive sort of language. And the Buddha let him speak until he had finished using these abusive words, and then the Buddha said to him, do you ever invite anyone to your house? He says, of course I do. And he says, when you invite a guest to your house, do you, receive them with food and drink? He said, of course, that's basic hospitality. I always put out food for them and drink for them. And the Buddha says, and if they don't partake of the food and drink that you've put out for them, who does that food and drink belong to? And he said, well, if they don't eat it and consume what I offer them, it belongs to me. And he says, so too your words of abuse, that the Tathagata does not partake of them, who do they belong to? Okay? Yes. And see, we're different, when someone says, we're, brilliant, then we kind of take it all in. And when they call us an idiot, we take it all in. Yes? Yes? And so we have to be very, very careful of that. Because if you take you're brilliant, take that all in and say, I won't take you're an idiot, that's not possible. If you take one, you take the other. So if someone says you're brilliant, you also have to reflect, is that true? I have to know myself. Am I brilliant? Am I, true? Do I know myself? And so you don't get elated because of someone's just overly praised. And sometimes that happens with the monks. We have to be very careful. Once I was at Wat Nanachat, some people come with immense faith. We had one gentleman come and he bowed down to me and he said, Venerable, Venerable, is there any monk here not yet an arahant? No, not yet fully enlightened. And I said, if there is, he will know. If there's not, he will know.